I will do no more work. I don't know why. Something just said I will do no more work with TYT though. In its current capacity, I will.
Oh wow, bro!
No more content. I will be on no more shows. It's over for me. Like something just told me I have to say that, and I need to put it on Twitter. I need to text Cenk and Anna. Y'all can't call me for no more shows. I'm done with it.
What?
Yeah, in real life.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Damn, that's 100.
I love Dr. Richie. Somebody said, "What about Dr. Richie?" That's the only reason I have tears. That's the only reason I have tears in my eyes because I love Dr. Richie.
Shout out to Dr. Richie.
I love Dr. Richie more than I love the ground that I feel that I need to stand on in this point. And Dr. Richie is a super strong will and will be for successful in everything. He got a million jobs for a reason, but this right now is me saying I can voice TYT in his current age. And if it means I'm never going to be in relationship with those people again, I accept that. But it's over at this point.
Damn.
Hello humans, I'm Dan from the internet. This is a clip from my interview with Mondale Robinson. He's a former TYT contributor who decided, spur of the moment, to quit the network as you just saw. Cenk has since responded, and we both want to address that and why Black people, among other marginalized groups, feel so strongly about allyship and Cenk and Anna's lack of it now more than ever. So please like and subscribe, and you will be rewarded because if you watch the very end of the video, there are some special teasers and sneak peeks that you won't want to miss. Time codes are available for your convenience. Thank you, humans. This is your Power Report. That was just like in, a couple minutes, several hours. I don't know if I forget how long you were streaming that night because I saw it like right after it ended and, live streams. But what were some of your thoughts that led up to that? And also, I know you've had some experiences and moments, close brushes, if you're comfortable with like speaking to them in some degree, like where a lot of this commentary really started to come into a head for you and it felt untenable. Can you take us to kind of that thought process and that thinking?
Yeah, and I think, first of all, man, thank you so much for being here. And I know you, out of most people, and unlike most people, you probably feel like, well, damn, it's about time because you did this, you left 4 years before I even left. So, but let me set the context. My relationship with TYT was tangential. Ben used to be on the network when we started.
Ben Dixon.
Yeah, Ben Dixon used to be on TYT when we started Clickbaity Political Thirstrap during the COVID pandemic, and so that relationship formed out of our show, and then they wanted me to be up there. So I started going on that show, but in doing that, they knew in 2022 when I ran for mayor, one of the first things I did when I got elected was tear down a Confederate monument in the middle of a park that the town owned. And in doing that, I started getting death threats, real death threats, so much so that the authorities had to get involved and tell me that, your life is in danger and your name is popping up in some extremely dangerous spaces online. We got doxxed and white people started showing up around our houses with guns, so much so that we tried to do an announcement to get the governor of North Carolina to issue a state of emergency so that we could get some state troopers down there to assist with what was happening, but they didn't do that. The young boys in town started protecting me by sitting in my yard and providing protection, but that to me sounded dangerous and putting young black men lives in danger. So I said, I'll get a security detail myself whenever I needed to be in town. That fast forward 2 years, and I've been a contributor both as a co-host on the network for TYT and also Rebel HQ that helped them get to 1 million subscribers on Rebel HQ and also producing 30 million views a year for them, for their benefit. I mean, of course, there were some financial gains for me, but they were very small compared to what it means for them to have 1 million subscribers and also 30 million extra views over there. So what was in my mind at that moment was, first of all, it was my anniversary. December 10th was my anniversary to my wife. And I'm looking in her face because when I was recording, she was sitting to my left and she's sitting there. And I felt all of a sudden something just made me feel like a fraud. I'm taking paychecks from this network who's cozying up to people who are literally trying to kill us. That's not hyperbole. These people are trying to kill us regularly, so much so that my wife can't walk around and go visit her family freely without a security team sometimes. So that to me made me feel like a fraud to continue to take these paychecks and watch Cenk that day say some craziness, and also Anna referring to us as religious zealots. So I in that moment had to react, and I reacted. One, without talking to my wife, which I regret, but even though she has the same point of view on me about this point, but also I needed to say that, listen, Black people beyond me and myself are in danger with Donald Trump's administration. And Cenk and Anna, during this election cycle early on this year, when we was on the shows together, and also as early as last month, knew that we were dealing with fascists. So I don't know what changed to make them believe that they could be comfortable in Twitter, not in their spaces, but in Twitter and in conservative media spaces, say something completely different about piling up to these people. So I think, to steal a word from you, Dan, and also Sarah Palin, piling up to fascists, I needed an answer on what the hell was going on at TYT. And that answer for me couldn't come from Cenk and Anna. It has to come from the progressive left to say that you're no longer going to be able to call us the radical left, Cenk, and also cozy up with Glenn Beck and the lights. So I think that's where I was at. And that was my mindset.
That's remarkably well put. It's like, who are the real radicals when, there's a fun saying about leftists where, in addition to all the misinformation that is said about leftists, it is the idea that right-wingers think that we're all organized, that Joe Biden has his finger on the pulse of what DSA actually wants or thinks or feels, and that the DSA has their finger on the pulse of like what anarchists or people who are actually walking in communities and not only showing up once every 2 years or 4 years, what they have to say. Just there's so much disconnect between different left coalitions that, might probably get together and vote the same way, given 2, maybe 3 viable options on the local or national level. But in reality, it is so disorganized, right? And so, given that there's so much more common ground that people can have within the left, you would think that the benefit of the doubt would be given to people who you're in coalition with, who you have on your network, for example, versus, people you work around, versus these figures who have been proven to be in bad faith. We've gone years and years ahead. They haven't gone on some sort of new born again sort of thing. I played on the main Power Report stream on a couple days ago where I was watching with Bonnie and Ravana, and we were watching Anna Kasparian speak with Glenn Beck. And I kept playing the clip, first of all, where Glenn Beck was on Fox News 10 years ago during like the recession era and was like barking like a dog because of something Obama had said, and just like barking at the screen in a very unhinged way. And you know what? He's talked about, being a born again, reverse double born again Christian, and like going through changes and whatever. And I'm willing to let people grow, totally fine. But he's not grown in his politics. In that exact same interview with Anna Kasparian, Anna kind of critiques this, but doesn't really go on the assertive to anything I had seen in the interview, at least to that point, is that Glenn Beck is bragging about being at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump and palling around with these people. It's like, listen, I can see engaging with a right-winger if I know they're in bad faith, if I know I'm going to be able to intellectually break their spine, right? I'm otherwise not going to give them the time of day because I know that they're not coming out there to have like a real conversation about, oh, maybe I could learn something, or maybe I can really change their mind and not like attack them or like embarrass them or like make a video about them getting owned or destroyed. But that's usually their goal. So you don't really pay attention to it. But they're instead making this like so personal that they are forgetting the fact that we are still much more willing to be reasonable than the fascists that they are cozying up to.
Yeah, and I think
that's such a concern. Yeah.
No, go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
No, please go.
So yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's a large part of my problem. Like this idea that you think that there's better coalition or better sinew glue over there with them than us, and we're supposed to be in coalition. You said that the coalition, the left, what the world called the radical left, which I reject, because what's radical about seeing humanity in trans people? What's radical about saying that Black people deserve equity and our history deserve to be taught in a full and real way? So I think when we accept that hostility, and I call that hostility, when we accept that hostility about us, we're saying we're kind of capitulating to what the right wing wants us to say, that these are radical thoughts. What's radical about equity, and who is it radical to? And then when we start from that point, then we automatically see what Anna and Cenk's angle is. And I think, and it
we can't start from their framing, because
exactly.
we have spent years, they have spent years. I spent years working with them. You spent time working on their platforms, speaking about how you can point out the hypocrisy till you're blue in the face, but at the end of the day, they have started from their prejudices and their racist beliefs on the right wing, and they're creating a lot of reasons to make it seem as reasonable as possible to people who aren't paying attention that what they're doing actually isn't that. They're just looking out for everyone else, and really, white people. And so if that works for people who aren't paying attention, you're supposed to be the people who are paying attention. Cenk-Ana, that's supposed to be the people who are paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, and if not, then you are absolutely supposed to be the people paying attention. When you have 1 billion views because of progressive eyes, you know what I mean? Like progressive eyes looking at and buying into your product, and then you show up in the manner that you show up, that to me is, you're a bad shepherd at this point. I'm not calling Cenk and Anna anybody's hero, but you're being bad shepherd with what people gave you and what people invested in over the past 2+ decades. So I find extreme, not just fault, there's a characteristic flaw in that behavior, for Anna to seemingly be on attack of trans people as of late in a way that is not helpful or inclusive to our movement. When we started buying into the idea, and I think for me it was a combination. Let me say that real quick. The combination was me being frustrated with every day as a Black man from the South waking up with an email from James Carville on behalf of the Democratic Party, and then also seeing Cenk and them. To me, it's like, oh, where did this merger of a Democrat, James Carville, willing to use the Southern white strategy, and the so-called radical left and Cenk, when did that merge? Who had that conversation, or who ignited this new coalition of white people, of white adjacent people, to say that it's time to abandon everybody's issues except for those that could bring back the majority white folk that we lost? And we know that Donald Trump was successful in doing something that will never happen again, right? Donald Trump was able in this election cycle to grow the white percentage of the electorate, even though the population, their population, the percentage is shrinking. And that is a testament to what whiteness is. But it's also a critique of these moderate and conservative leaning Democrats thinking that you can bring Liz Cheney to the party and it's going to do enough to win an election. No, what you're going to do
at the same time.
Yeah, at the same time, you're going to paralyze your base and not animate. You're going to freeze your base to the point where they're going to say, this is not for me. This is not what I'm looking for. Real progressives were not threatened and did not lose general elections, right? The world will continue to tell you that there's this huge mandate from the right now because of Trump's victory. But if you look at it, there was no mandate. Donald Trump didn't grow in raw number of votes with Black people. The percentage went higher, but that's because more people on our side sat out the election. 6 million people to see the world like we saw the world, or see the world, decided that what the Democrat was selling was not what they were buying. But they didn't go buy Trump. They sat out, right? And I think people aren't talking about this in a real way. The idea that you can be conservative or conservative light and increase the participation of people who would otherwise be progressive voters does not work. I mean, even when you poll Republicans in rural spaces, when you talk to them about our policies, if you remove the name of them, if you remove Obamacare, they love their health insurance, hate the national health insurance. Well, your health insurance is a product of Obamacare, right? Like
I remember, just really fast to buttress this, I remember when they broke out, do you like Obamacare? People said no. Do you like staying on your parents' healthcare till 26? Objectively, yes.
Guys, hey, you guys, like
This would be the equivalent to saying, like, okay, well, we obviously know that Obamacare doesn't work. We should abandon advocating for single-payer healthcare. And, like, I've mentioned this in a lot of conversations just because it happens to be coinciding, because we're talking about this whole fervor over the United Healthcare thing.
Yeah.
But, not to argue over the morals over how people are reacting to it, but what you're seeing are people from multiple sides of the spectrum, all like political spectrums and ideologies, all walks of life, rich and poor, many people like of different races. Like, we're not sure exactly how to get this or make this happen, but we're angry, upset, and hurt. And we need to start from a place of like understanding that and channeling that somewhere. And then first we need to be acknowledged. I think so many people just haven't been acknowledged. Sorry to like
No, I
like,
love that.
it all ties together.
Yeah, I love that. And that need to be acknowledged is not out of vanity, right? Like we are for millions of years hunters and gatherers. Of course, this is very recent human history that we had refrigerators so we could start storing food and stop being hunters and gatherers. So this idea, if you're not seen by your pack, by your tribe, that is a death sentence for humans, right? So it's coded in us to be seen. Also, to be seen is also to be heard in some cases. You can't pretend not to see the homeless person that sits in your front porch every day when you walk past them and go get in your luxury car. That's a thing. And what I mean by that is, let's be clear, bro. I am not advocating, I'm going back to this healthcare thing. I'm not advocating that we off CEOs, unalive people. That is not what I'm saying. Isn't it funny though, how Cal Rittenhouse, Daniel Penny, all of these guys are celebrated for unaliving Black people for a lot less than killing other people.
Laura Ingraham did a heel turn and said, we can't be upset about this death, talking about the CEO thing. We have to be happy that this person who killed this person, got off and got away with it, Daniel Penny. And in one case, the death is someone who has like a lot of power, who, directly, indirectly, whoever you want to put it, the healthcare industry in America is bureaucrats deciding who gets the healthcare money and who gets to, possibly suffer for the rest of their potentially short lives. And the other person was a Michael Jackson impersonator on the subway, who was probably suffering from a lot of the issues that you have from an inaccessible and inadequate healthcare system. So if you had some of those resources, in addition to a home and a place to stay and some, other resources to get on his feet and not, focus on getting himself right, then yeah, there'd be a lot of other different things to happen. But that doesn't also absolve Daniel Penny in that behavior. And that also shows the hypocrisy of someone like Laura Ingraham, and also shows you like they don't really care. Because they can do that heel turn in logic, because the people who are there aren't watching for logic. They're watching for the ability to, feel comfortable that they're rooting for a team. It's not even like there's racist elements to that, but when you see all of the pundits not paying attention to the their audiences, even they're going so far ahead of what their audiences want, and they're the whole reason they're existing. If the audiences go away, and this has parallels with the Cenk-Ana thing, if the audiences go away, then they are a lot less relevant and influential, and they can't really do what the thing they're doing is. And so it's not that you have audience capture, but it's also that, like, if you're in the game of politics, you have to be receptive to what people actually want. And so, like, yeah, I think it's just very, very telling that in this case, you have Ben Shapiro, you have Laura Ingraham, whose interests are racism, which aligns with a lot of their audience, but it's also a certain class stratification, which doesn't.
Yeah, and I'm not brave enough, brother. I'm not really brave enough to dissect classism and racism in this country, right? I think whiteness is business, right? Think about that. I mean,
absolutely,
right? So, and I mean, Penny killed a Black man, like you said, Mr. Neely, and got an invitation to J.D. Vance's and Donald Trump's suite at the Army Navy game. This is the new version of when we said Black Lives Matter and they said Blue Lives Matter. Instead of just saying it now, their actions are like they're showing you in coded action, like the dog whistle actions. The idea that you can kill somebody as Black, And this is why I'm frustrated at Cenk-Ana, because I said the death of Black people will be paraded in our face because of your actions. You are now sitting next to, and according to Dr. Tindy X, like if you're sitting next to and quiet about or appeasing racism, then you too are being racist. You're not being anti-racist. So this behavior of Cenk-Ana is anti-racist when you're willing to say that racism isn't it. When we watched the people that voted for Donald Trump, who told us the economy was the reason before the election. Right after the election, they got polled by Pew, and these people said, "Oh yeah, the economy ain't that bad." The economy.
The behavior is helping racists, because I think you said like anti-racist by accident there, but like I just want to like make that clear. Like, yeah, it's like helping racists when you're going, when you're on that. And it's like it's not saying you have to lie. I'm trying to like steel man the argument here, and not just play random devil's advocate. It's like it's not saying you're like lying or not listening to certain people. It means like you're expanding your broad audience of who's talking.
Well, I mean, then you need to, and that too requires, for me, that too is almost like the flaw in the so-called forgetfulness of the Black Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, him forgetting all of his gifts. That to me, him forgetting to do that should have came with oh, by the way, right? And in full disclosure, I don't feel like Ana and Cenk is offering their viewers a full disclosure, like, hey, we're no longer value-based. We're not here to be the progressive vanguard. We're not trying to hold that space. If you're looking for that, go somewhere else, because right now, what we're trying to do is position ourselves to be relevant in a Trump America.
And a lot of what I was working with them for a while, and a lot of what they did was, you know, they would say that, listen, we'll keep it real with you. We'll tell you what our interests and our opinions are, and we'll tell you why we have them. And, you know, this is things that Cenk and Ana would say. And these were, you know, whole things. Ultimately, we would all generally agree with each other on a lot of things, but I would have good faith discussions with everyone we're talking about in the past. It's just like you said, it just changed so drastically at a time when, you know, I forget who made the analogy, but I've been repeating it a lot. So kudos to them. But media is collapsing. A lot of institutions are dying. A lot of like really good journalists are having to go independent. And, you know, there's great success in having that. Like, you know, that's like good for them, because there's a lot of benefits that come to that. But there's also a lot of downsides and fragmentation that comes to that. And it comes to be a lack of having these ecosystems. And when you know, it's good that we have the Democracy Now! And Amy Goodman, but, you know, these people can't be doing it forever, right?
Nor can they do it all, right? Like, I mean, like,
yeah.
even in the era of new TV, when TV was young and at 11 o'clock it became a fuzzy screen, there were more than just Walter Cronkite, right? We had 3 channels to choose from, and then we also had radio. So it can't just be Amy Goodwin. And that's why I think I'm so frustrated with what happened. There's so much political infrastructure. I'm talking about like the time that build a relationship, to build trust, invested in this TYT network. And I don't want to stay there all the time, but I think we should really criticize them, because you guys stole something we couldn't afford to give up. And now
and there's great people who are like working on that network, like you mentioned, Rashad Ritchie, John Idarola, Francesca Fiorentini. There's so many other people who have like gone through there. And, you know, like I've been critical, and I was critical while I was there, of people like Jimmy Dore and Dave Rubin. But for every Jimmy Dore and Dave Rubin, you get a Hassan Piker and an Emma Vigeland. So, you know, it's a mixed bag. Cenk, for better or worse, has a lot of trust and faith in people. And, you know, I wouldn't go gambling with him, but, you know, there's a difference between, you know, I can take that versus what's happening right now. And, you know, like I want to move on to this a little bit, because I want to also get into like a couple different things. But there's 2 interesting things that kind of actually I'll get to that later. But like when it comes to you, you mentioned that you were just kind of a contributor. How did you come to start working with Rebel HQ, basically?
Yeah, so I was a co-host over at on the show on TYT, doing like filling in for Dr. Ritchie, filling in for Nina Turner, or being on the show regularly. So I was a paid contributor in that way first, and then I think Judy, one of the producers, or over at or I think she maybe is in charge of talent at TYT, saw me at a conference. I think it was America Vote conference a few years back, and I was speaking on stage. And when I came off stage, someone introduced us, and she said, "We really need your voice over on Rebel HQ." And I think that's how the relationship began. So I started creating content January, a couple years ago, January 2 or 3 years ago, and that's how it began. And I think some of it's my fault, right? Like I had those bump ins with Cenk on the main show, or the pushback, and I think between me and Ben Glebe when he was hosting his show. But I think for me, what I was lazy in was connecting the dots. How many people had left and why people were leaving, and part of that was me getting caught up by the number of views I was getting or generating. And I think that is something we should always keep our guard up against. Like, are we getting too close to this celebrity or this idea that we should center our personality or personalities in general? I think the way J. Cole said it was, yeah, long live the idols, pray they never become your rivals. And I think, and I think that to me is a real thing. And I had to check that. Really had to check it when it came to this idea that these people that I gave a pass on certain things are now cozying up to the folk that literally would have me dead if they could.
Yeah, like it gets to a certain point where, and you mentioned like it wasn't really like a money thing; it's a principles thing. It had reminded me a lot of what you were talking about was, and actually reminded me of a memory because I'd worked so long there, it was really different. So I remember the 2016 election. I was in college. And I was actually working remotely for TYT. I was like kind of on air really, but I wasn't even working on the production side. I was more on like the business side of things. And during the election, Jimmy Dore retweeted me. And Jimmy Dore hadn't really gone full conservative, but it was interesting because I'd been retweeted by other people at TYT before, and most of the people on Twitter at the time that were following them were very left-leaning, left-wing fans of the show. And then there got to be one certain point where there got to be one certain point where I noticed Jimmy Dore retweeted me, and a bunch of Donald Trump fans were coming at me more than usual. And I started receiving death threats from them. And listen, I'm like basically a glorified intern at that point, right? Like, so like, why am I all of a sudden here? I didn't even say something that provocative or that whatever. There are so many different it was like a torrential thing. Like I actually got like mail. I was with my girlfriend at the time, and like I was worried for her safety. And fast forward to 2019, a similar thing happens where Hassan had said his like America deserved 9/11 comments on his stream, but because he was working on TYT, staff were getting death threats, the office was getting death threats. And there's a certain the reason I bring all that stuff up is because there's a realness to this politics that has been apparent for a very long time. Other people have comments about how people were protected at that time. I don't really have the energy to get into that, but like I think that knowing all of that and having all of those experiences that they've talked about on air too, and they've had experiences like they feared for their lives. And let me be clear, I don't want that for anyone, and I don't want that for them. People who I disagree with vehemently, I think are taking me and others in bad faith, but ultimately I had good times with and had like good relationships with, and deep down I don't want anything bad to happen to them. But knowing that, how are you going to cozy up to the people who like have them in their audience? It is insane to me. It's insane to me.
It's insane, and it's also irresponsible, right? Like, so it's interesting that you brought up like what happens when people retweet you or what's going on. Like, if you've I don't know if you've been down the rabbit hole that is Anna's Twitter lately, or Jenks. It's more and more Trump people celebrating them, congratulating them, and it's just like, this is not the space you want to be in, or you should. There's never going to be a post or tweet that I put out other than when I criticized Barack Obama for coming at black men. But even then, they didn't, the right didn't have anything positive to say about me. And you can't really control what people say, but you have to see the shift in your actions. And also, you are an internet company, TYT, so you know exactly who and what's going on with the clicks and twicks. So, and I think that to me makes it seem more intentional, because you wouldn't behave in this manner, understanding internet demographics, social media demographics, and you can't pretend that you don't know what's happening. So for me, I'm frustrated in all of that, brother. And I think that's something that the world had to hold them accountable. And we see the TYT world holding them accountable in this moment, not just the people that are there, but also, you know, also the subscribers, or those who used to be subscribers, abandoning them in a rate that's uncommon for sure.
Absolutely. You had talked about, you know, the saga continues. This crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious Friday the 13th. And you had sent part of you know, a response. And I have you here, and this is a really, like, you know, well thought out response that I can link to for folks to read. I will show it kind of over here. But I do want to note that this is in response to something that Cenk is saying. So I'll read what Cenk said, and then I will let you elaborate. So he says, the radical left has been primarily bullying the rest of the left for years. We are not changing any of our policies. We just don't agree that the most extreme policies are the most effective. The great majority of the left doesn't agree with them, and elections in New York, California, and all the Democratic cities proved it. So I'm not going to let them speak for the rest of us. They can try their usual bullying tactics. The Young Turks have been fighting off bullies for over 20 years. Good luck. You're going to need it.
So this is so frustrating. Just the small, you pay attention to the nuances. They, we, and them. You see how he used those words? He's no longer calling himself a leftist, right? He's now a part of the establishment. We. He used we to associate himself with being a part of conservative Democrats, or now we are all of a sudden bullying them. And in my comment, I want to understand, one, how are you framing it in this manner that we are bullying the establishment when they have all of the corporate dollars, when they are in control of all of the Democratic Party apparatus? This goes back to what you said, and how when you frame it in that manner, people believe that like DSA is connected to Antifa, is connected to, when in actuality, there's no connecting things except for the idea that America owes so much more to other people than the white 1%. So Cenk taking this standpoint is absolutely disgusting to me, because he allows and creates space for hostility towards people who are fighting for equity for people other than white. Right. He's also in this framing and in this idea or in this statement, he's doing something that's beautiful for me, and that is drawing a line between us and them. Right. He's saying that he is a conservative or moderate or corporate Democrat. I don't know where he is. Somehow he's become a part of the establishment, and that he is no longer. And I just need our side. I need the left to acknowledge that Cenk said it himself, not just us. And I also think that people need to get serious about charging him up with this misrepresentation as if it's a winning strategy. Like, we're not bullying. They control the primary apparatus. And why is that important? If you can't win in the primary, you can't win in a general election. We progressives are snuffed out of the primary. And if we're running against someone who is a moderate or corporate Democrat, we see what happens, right? I.e., what happened to Cori Bush, a super progressive congresswoman who got outspent by the apparatus, the establishment, with a milquetoast Democrat who soon as he won the primary, the first person he think was AIPAC. So Cenk saying that we are bullying these people is absolutely ludicrous to me. We were given a candidate. We were given a candidate. This is who you will basically vote for in the presidential election, right? Kamala was not chosen by the progressives. The progressives hold no position of power in our party other than in the progressive caucus. And that means we had to create our own caucus to create leadership, right? And I think that to me is dastardly for Cenk to be saying and doing and showing up in this moment in this manner. So I felt like this what somebody said should have been an op-ed in some left media. I think I think for me, it's a critique of how dirty Cenk is willing to go and right now play this game, and so much so that he himself has disconnected himself from who we are and what we stand for. We don't have the ability to bully anyone because our institutions, as you said so eloquently, are not linked. We are a disassociated, a disjointed movement that care about people.
Yeah, and the effort needs to be spent on not accepting the narratives, even when it comes down to what you were saying also really eloquently. And like there's room for a disagreement on the left as we're talking about here. So it's not like, a love fest. But I really liked how you said how we're snuffed out of the primary, and Cenk and Anna and everyone else, our answer during 2016 and 2015 with Bernie Sanders and 2020 was not, oh, let's accept the fact that we're snuffed out of the primary. No, let's barnstorm the primary. Let's not, quibble about all these different little things. We didn't go, oh, Bernie Sanders should ignore the black people that went on his stage with him and tried to tell him to cater his message better to black people, not ignore them. It wasn't say, oh, Bernie Sanders shouldn't cater to a couple of extreme leftists who are just bullying. No, Bernie Sanders listened. He never really got perfect, but he got a lot better. And that's how you actually build a coalition. Now, that coalition didn't go big enough because, you have a lot of powers and things like that. But that is how you keep a coalition together versus going, that meme from Toy Story 2 or whatever. I don't want to play with you anymore.
Yes.
With people you're trying to build coalition with.
Right. And I think you're right. And I also think Bernie's the Bernie example is a great example for our progressive community, because so many people saw and fought the establishment. They saw the power of the establishment. When you had someone that was generating so much energy with the progressive wing of our party, we watched that, right? And we all felt something hurt. We all felt hurt by how the establishment snuffed out Bernie. But then too, like we watch what you said, like what you said is the unrealization of what could have been if we had fully listened to the black base, right? Bernie Sanders took the 4 years after his first attempt to go to Nevada and build a better relationship with our Latinx brothers and sisters. And that worked out for him because he did better in 2020 with them. But he also forgot to come to South Carolina and North Carolina and the South and build relationships for those 4 years he wasn't running for president with the black folk. And I think that too hurt his work. And it also showed, though, you cannot whiten up the progressive movement. It's not going to happen. The white people in America have shown us since
whiten. I'm on the West Coast. You got to make sure you pronounce them vowels. Okay, come on, you got to whiten, because people will literally pass over that. It's important because people will pass over that and they'll think, oh, you can't widen the progressive thing. It's like, no, that's what we're trying to say. Yes. You can widen it, but
you can't,
like we said,
in it.
for all of the kvetching from, too many progressives. I'm not even really talking about Cenk-Ana in this case, but you'll still find a lot of progressives who will say, oh, well, what about black men? What about Latino men? And those are overblown problems. But you even have Barack Obama going, oh, listen up, black men. And I'm like,
I mean, but Barack look, the idea, first of all, Barack Obama is not progressive, but the idea that Barack Obama can even speak to black men as a motivator, as someone who would animate them, is a fallacy in our politics, right? This is a man,
especially anymore, it ain't 2008, buddy.
Especially anymore, right? Where we have, and that matters for a couple reasons. But first, it matters because you are a black man that told us you were a teenager when you learned how to be black at a bar from a white man taking you to a pool bar in Hawaii. My friend, I promise you that's not how you learn how to be black, right? Every one of us, you, me, and everybody else, did not learn how to be a black man at 15. The world showed us early on how it felt about us and what it meant to be in this skin, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, I love that Barack Obama's power or sway over black men is lessened because there are more black men right now eligible to vote than ever because generations are more diverse, right? His victory with black men, or this overwhelming love, came from a demographic that was basically baby boomers, a generation of just keep fighting regardless. I mean, you don't always got to speak about the regardless. I love that this generation always talks about their regardless, because their regardless is what's making their life inequitable, and people aren't talking about that, and the lack of influence from not Biden, but every man that he represents. He represents D.L. Hughley, the bourgeoisie of black men, the college educated, and I have college degrees, so I need to say that, but the college educated brothers who showed up on that Win with Black Men call, those brothers don't speak to the majority of black men or the lived experience of black men in this country. So that get in line or get information, or you don't know what you're going through, it didn't work and didn't resonate. And I love that, because it shows that these aren't people who are Trump supporters. These are people that you are not going to fool like you did their grandfathers and great uncles.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is the point of when we're saying widening the left, and not to flatten, ultimately, I'm a big proponent of intersectionality, which is why I have my life is intersectionality. I am a multiracial, queer man. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. There's a lot of times where I feel certain aspects of that doubly because of it, or less so, like all the different stuff. I have privileges, I have all these other different things. It all comes together, all that stuff matters. And when you start to say, okay, well, I think your issues matter less, what happens when you're in a union and you're actually, and this is what I want to kind of get in and talk with you about more as well, is that when you are on the ground, you've actually worked with organizing people. And I'm literally not saying Cenk hasn't, because he started all these like political action committees and done campaigns. Like those are supposed to be the skills you're having if you're not just listening to the sound of your own voice. But you have to convince a room of people who have a lot of different opinions, who have a lot of different backgrounds, to unite on the same things. And if you've already said, okay, we're in a union, and this union has a lot of people who are like of the same like working class background, but there are black people, there are white women, there are black men, there are trans people, and you have already established, hey, sorry, but we decided to throw the trans people who work here under the bus because it's just like two of you, and maybe you don't get healthcare you need, but because of that, we think that'll be a way for us to get other people healthcare, so we're going to do that. It's like, no, if you think that decreasing your base to widen a base that has already said, not only do we not want to give them healthcare, which is, the natural conclusion to you want them to die.
Exactly.
But it's also by saying, I'm not going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for people whose beginning position is that. And it's just, I think that's why intersectionality is important. That's why I think people can be wrong. You don't have to agree with everything, but when smart people who are on your side are giving you resources, that means, don't go, okay, I heard you, but this other people who are saying this other thing matches more with what I think people are seeing. And I'm not really revealing anything here, but I think what people are seeing is deep down what their biases are, and how they can't settle and work with those biases when confronted with countering evidence. It's the same thing. It's like, it's very projection wise, where they're constantly accusing this extreme left we're talking about. Look at us, very extreme.
Very extreme.
Where, they're constantly accusing us of saying things like, they're constantly accusing, sorry, I'm trying to get my train of thought, but like they're constantly accusing us of picking these like fringe positions and staying there and like going in the wrong direction. But it's often like what they're doing. Sorry, I kind of lost exactly what I was saying there, but
I don't think you did.
I'll get it back.
No, I don't think you lost it. I think people.
I think it's projection, but I forget exactly how I was going to like.
Yeah, it's projecting, but it's also for me. I almost like my hands started sweating when you were talking, because especially when you paused and got little cold chills when you paused and just said, "Look at us, we're so extreme, right? Or we're so radical." And I think We are though, right? And in their mind, right? If you take the context of American politics and what it means to have a straight black man and a straight queer, and a queer black man sitting up here talking or criticizing the so-called the media apparatus that speaks on our behalf, supposedly. I think for them that is unbelievable. That is Woodrow Wilson's White House, right? That is him playing the first motion picture, Birth of a Nation, right? Because in their eyes, they villainize. They still see us as that character that was black men in that movie. That's why you can say stupid stuff like we're bullying the left, we're bullying the people because we are like. The reason they didn't use black people in Birth of the Nation or any of the in any of the minstrel shows was, one, because hell no, we're black, you're not going to use them, but also it wouldn't have been as emphasized what they wanted to emphasize, right? They needed the white gloves, they needed the big lips, they needed all of the dark the paint. So I think for me, I don't separate my politics and how they see us from how they saw us, and I think it means something that you and I both are people that they are trying to talk less about, and you and I both has said we needed to voice that work. It's more folk, and this is what Francesca said on John's show the other night. You know, it means something that Mondale and other black and queer and trans people have left the network and continue to leave at a faster rate than white people. Like, you are not listening, as you said, you're not listening to people. You're saying, but what about these other folk? And that other folk that they're trying to have a different starting point. And it seems that doesn't matter to them as long as they can widen their base. And I think that's what they chose. They chose to have more numbers, more views, more clicks than they did to have more values as it pertains to the others, the people that they chose to other. In this case, trans folk, queer folk, and black people.
Exactly. And that's how you build a coalition. I think it is easier to look. One thing I've said till I'm blue in the face on Power Report and any other venue I ever get invited on is that even though we live in a two-party system that is often being, rightfully considered to be a uniparty as it turns as far as like results of what we get and, where a lot of alliances lie. In reality, when it comes to at least the citizenry, we have like 5 or 6 broad camps that even from there can go into different categories. And so like you probably say like center left, further left, center right, further right, like however you want to name it, but like we should be thinking about politics in those perspectives. And so there's a lot of people who are hard on one side, and if you know anything about American politics, and again, I wouldn't have worked with them as long as they did, and all these other good people wouldn't have worked with them as long as they did, and all of the other great people in the audience who watch them and even continue to watch them for as long as they have or did believe that Cenk-Ana and others who are like making the shift from the left to the right don't know these things. But America and the world overall since the 1950s through a lot of deregulation and post World War II stuff that I learned too much about in college, we have been moving further to conservatism and further to the right. And so you can either go, it's like you see the train going that way and you either think, okay, I'm going to negotiate with the train a little bit and like hop onto it, but maybe I can run my way to the front and tell the conductor, oh, could you please maybe turn the train around? And they're like, and then I'll just hear, oh, you're really nice and really sweet. You're a really good friend. Nice to see you. But trains don't make U-turns. Nice try though. And he's just gonna keep going faster.
Right. Yeah. I think
we're at the end of the train. Like we're in front of the train when we're trying to say, no, I would like to get away from that train.
Right.
And I would like to get more people on board this one so that, the train analogy kind of goes outside there. But I'm trying to say, like, the reason I mentioned the 5 quadrants of where quadrants is the wrong word, that's 4, but like the reason I mentioned the 5 sections of where politics lies in America is because if you have a group of far right kooks, and we all believe that these people are, that they're weird and we can pick at them, and hopefully we spend the next 4 years focusing more on that than this stuff. But knowing that, and knowing there's just a group of people in the middle who are just disillusioned for other reasons, if we can just, if there's I don't think you can build a third party in 4 years, but let's create a magical theory world where you have a head of the DNC who says, I'm Bernie Sanders, but 36 years old, and my number one issue for the Democratic Party is going to be Medicare for all, because I'm going to turn something productive out of this, fervor over the United Healthcare CEO, and we're going to address this. And if we don't get Medicare for all in the end, we're going to fight very hard for it, but we're going to get as close as we can, and we're not going to start on enemy territory. We're not going to start on their conditions. And you will notice that and again, these are things that Cenk has supposedly said for years. I just wish you would apply them to other things. If you start on things that are popular, and they're popular on a broad spectrum, that's much easier and a much better use of your time strategically than trying to appeal to people who are just ideologically foot in the ground, or they make more money to have that opinion. It's much easier than convincing them. And by the way, it's a thing you actually agree with and will also help people. Like win, and somehow this ego thing has been driven into it. And I'll kind of keep that as my last point here for that piece.
Yeah, and I think we forget in all of that, brother, at the expense of who? Right? We see Donald Trump with everything you just said,
and on the end of the right of the right branch of the train.
Right. Or the people standing in front of it.
The people in front of it. That's what I'm trying to say.
In front of the train, right?
Yeah.
So you were saying it, and I mean, and Cenk and in your analogy, Cenk-Ana hopped on the back, right? So they're running up, and guess who they're running past? They're running past Trump's daughter-in-law. Son's girlfriend or fiance who's about to be a part of the administration. You got to run past 12 billionaires. You got to run past 2 more billionaires who just offered $1 million for his inauguration in Amazon, and also Zuckerberg, right? You also got to run past RFK daughter-in-law, who used to be a CIA agent, who everybody said was a kook, who said that the CIA killed JFK. You got to run past all of this. And this is because all of these people are on that train. And what I mean by that is all of these interests. Right, all of these people interests. How many people from Fox News Network are a part of this administration? And instead of us talking about that right now in this moment, what we're talking about is the ego of Cenk-Ana thinking that they can make a train do a U-turn. Where the track's at to do the U-turn?
Yeah. Do they know where the junction is? Because they keep talking about this junction, and I'm like, yo, that junction is after where all of us are in front of the train.
Absolutely.
Also, there's no proof that junction exists. We got no proof. You're just telling us. And it's like, okay, well, this the maiden voyage of this train that got a bad contractor called the Constitution of the Founding Fathers. So we didn't really build it quite right in the beginning. Right. That's why all of us are in front of this train.
Right. And not only are we in front of the train waving our hand, what we forget to mention is on both sides of us, because we're at a point in the train tracks where it's a bridge, so we can't just jump out the way, because either way we drown.
And, it's like, thank you for having the ability to get on the train, but when you get to that conductor, kick that door open and do whatever you need to do to stop the train.
Absolutely.
Pull the brakes.
Absolutely.
That's what you do if you get on that train. And there's nothing that indicates that there's an old switcheroo coming.
No. Right. And instead they're stuck in the food cart. They just toasting with Glenn Beck.
and that food's not even good. You ever see that meme of Black people who have finally got to go into the diner they were segregated in, and they're like, this is the worst food I ever had in my life.
When I was finally served at that counter, I thought it was by far one of the lousiest meals I ever had, and asked myself the question, is this what I put my life on the line for?
I let somebody spit on me for this?
But remember, it wasn't about the food anyhow. It was about being treated as a fellow human being.
Right?
Yeah,
that's the reaction I'm waiting.
I went to law school in Arkansas, and one of the I mean, I got in a relationship with Minnie Jean Brown's little sister, Phyllis Brown, who's not little to me. She's like my mother's age, and she was super radical. She was, their family were, used to hide the Panthers, like, and people forget about the radical nature of Arkansas and the folk in Arkansas, the black folk in Arkansas, and that Arkansas sent more people back to Africa with the Black Star Network created by Garvey than any other state in this country. But and Phyllis used to tell me about how integration took her other sandwiches. Like people talking about how black teachers, when these people went to these integrated schools, they didn't just take any black student, they took the brightest and these so-called model students, and then they got over there, they didn't get the extra sandwich or the extra books that they used to get when they were in black schools. So it actually, when you said that, it's not only is the worst sandwich, it's less than what you had over in the other train cart.
Damn. Yeah. It's, we can get into the analogies all day. It's real fun. I love that we can riff like this.
I like the train one. It's like, let's keep going with this.
As my late great friend Michael Brooks used to say, see, he's right here on my shirt. Shout out Letterhack. Here's the pitch. Members got to experience the ideas you just heard first, with extra minutes and with fewer interruptions. Interviews with Mondale Robinson, J.R. Jackson, Jason Miles, and more are waiting for you. The future won't wait, so make yourself included. We can't build without you. And by we, I mean our initial members across YouTube, Twitch, and Syndicate23.co, including Shargoon at the Syndicalist level and the Anti-Corporatist at the Stingray level. Thank you so much for your support. Moderator Pinkerbell leading the Scorpions, Logan Hill, Cy Abelman, Danielle Capone, Benjamin Morrill, John Lucuyer, Lena P, Stoneflower Dragon, Hamather Sig, Mouse in the Dragon Onesie, Squishmallow Dragon, Late Bloomer 66, Mobile Newman, and all the Syndicate 23 day ones, including Bowen, Lisa, Daniel, another one, Carrie, Lori, and the discount Seth Rogen. Look at what we're building together. Thank you for seeing the vision. The power is always within you. Cheers.